Have you ever noticed the claws on the flappy flag and wondered where they came from? Or the statues of monsters that we don't have in our game? Well, from a literal dragon to real-life animals, and even a monster that was hunted to extinction by other monsters, these are all the extinct monsters of MSM monsters. This is all confirmed official lore. Sit back and relax as I tell you about the extinct monsters of MSM. Like I said earlier, you may have seen this claw on the flappy flag and wondered where it originated from. Well, it originates from the Dragoon, a species of monsters whose claws had an appearance that was so highly prized by collectors they were hunted to extinction. We know this from the Dragoon statue description, which also outlines that the species had a poor understanding of effective camouflage, meaning they would have been easy prey. The Dragoon is referenced in multiple decorations, being the flappy flag, dragon statue, and gold island background. It is unknown what they fully looked like. However, from their claws, we know that they were green and bony, with reptilian-like skin. I do wonder if the horns on the flappy flag also come from the Dragoons. Unfortunately, this is all the information we have on the Dragoons, leaving the Dragoons as a forgotten piece of MSM lore, waiting to be picked up again. While having similar spellings, dragons were indeed different monsters than the Dragoons. These guys were actually in the monster world at some point. While some monsters heavily resemble dragons in many ways, like Epic Potbelly, Dragon, and Keralong, no actual dragons currently exist. But through the Dragon Tower decoration, we have confirmation that dragons did indeed exist at one point. In the Dragon Tower's description, we figure out that the materials used for the Dragon Tower are actually old dragon parts that monsters had laying around. And we can see them on the tower, as it's made out of scales, a claw, and a tail. But we have more information from monster handler Matt, who in a June 2020 livestream confirmed that the decoration was a callback to one of BBB's earlier works, Finder's Keep. Finder's Keep was a roguelike dungeon crawler, with many human world fantasy creatures to fight, presumably including dragons. I say presumably because there's very little information about the game online, and we don't really know what dragons would have looked like in the game. Anyways, from the information kindly given to us by Matt, this likely means that dragons travel through the multiverse of BBB's games and into the monster world. Unfortunately, they ended up dying out. Things traveling between the multiverse and BBB games tends to happen a lot in the lore, so this idea is very plausible. But anyways, the Lyrodocus rex and Lyrodocus Regina were closely related creatures that lived long ago, now extinct. These artificial fiberglass models serves as the only remaining evidence of their existence. But don't worry, Rare Wither assures us that these were once alive creatures, as the Rare Wither can sense and detect the soul residue on the fiberglass models. Both Rex's and Regina's skeletons have fins, which produce a nice vibration when plucked, which the Withers used to produce music. From the skeletons, the monsters had teeth, tails, noses, eyes, and fins. The fins in particular make me wonder if the creatures lived in the water, but I'm no paleontologist. I definitely knew what that word meant before this video. Rex and Regina both have a similar resemblance to the Eerie remains in Fossil-Osaurus in terms of bone structure, but more on that later. The Ommonice were once a small living creature that lived near pools surrounding what was Cave Island, and I absolutely love this extinct monster because we were so close to getting to see it. The path on Bone Island is the only remains of this creature that we still have, with the description confirming that it was once alive. Thank you, MSM. The description suggests that the bones indicate that there was once a subterranean pool near present-day Bone Island, which is true. In DOF, which takes place in the same timeline as MSM, there is indeed a subterranean pool surrounding Cave Island, so you'd think we'd get to see them in DOF, right? No. We don't. That was a bit dramatic. But unlike the Ommonice, we do see prismatic monsters in DOF. Prismatic monsters are variants of monsters defined by one of these tints. Sometime in between the time gap of the two games, all prismatic monsters were wiped out, besides Epic Quibble, which managed to survive all the way up to our modern era, which means that Epic Quibble is actually a prismatic monster from a completely different time. This was confirmed in the 10th anniversary live, and if you know anything about DOF, you might be asking where all the other prismatic variants went, and why specifically Epic Quibble survived. Well, at some point, all prismatic monsters were sucked back into the Prism Gate, which is their own personal pocket dimension. But the Epic Quibble managed to not get sucked, thanks to its corkscrew shape beneath the ground. And because MSM and DOF exist on the same timeline, that means all of these monsters were in the game at some point. And those were the confirmed extinct monsters. But we're not done yet. There's plenty of other monsters I believe once existed in the monster world, and are now potentially extinct. Like this guy. Well, relatives of it. The Freed Thing originates from BBB's discontinued Fling-a-Thing from 2011. And in Fling-a-Thing, there's many other subspecies of things, which is what they're called. This includes Stongle, Thethor, Flappy, Shrub, Sproing, and Ghastly. And because Fling-a-Thing and MSM were both produced by BBB, they reside in a shared multiverse, allowing for occasional interdimensional travel. And just like the now extinct dragon traveling from Finder's Keep into the monster world, the original Flutter did so as well. But it makes me wonder, is there a chance the other things entered the monster world too? Did the other things come into the monster world with Flutter but were wiped out? Besides Flutter, who was preserved in Amber, I'm not sure, but now you know that more of these things exist. Did you know the Spurrit was once a long-believed extinct species of monsters, with only remnants of its existence being preserved in the decorations throughout the monster world? But the Spurrit was later rediscovered on May 25th, 2022, when it was added to the game as a seasonal monster, so you might be wondering why I'm including it here. It's because of the Barblu statue, which shares many of the similarities to the Spurrit, ironically looking even more similar to the Spurrit than the Spurrit statue does. However, we don't have any confirmation that the Barblu monsters did indeed exist at one point, or if they are spirits and accidentally were given another name. As of now, they may just be a creature of fantasy. Also potentially a creature of fantasy, we don't know if the Squeed from the Squeed statue are based off a real extinct creature, and MSM really doesn't give us much to work off of, as the statue's description is the shortest one in the game, being only 4 words long. Likewise with the Squeed, we don't know if the tub fountain creature is based off of one of fantasy or reality. It may be a reoccurring monster, however, with a similar counterpart being present in both nvoyaa and the main game, sort of. The wishing well, featuring its similar counterpart, is a scrapped DOF structure. We don't know if the structure did formerly exist in DOF lore, but it can be seen the DOF trailer. It does exist in our main game, however, with the wishing well appearing on the edge of Mirrorwater Island. We don't know if the creature in the tub fountain and the wishing well are the same, or if they were even real, but it's still interesting. Also interesting is the Leafy Sea Dragon, which isn't an extinct monster, but is rather based off of the actual Leafy Sea Dragon from our world. The monsters believe it to be a ridiculous creature of fantasy, which may be true coming from them, but it doesn't make much sense. I believe one of 2 things happened. The first possibility is that something entered the monster world from a different dimension with knowledge of the Leafy Sea Dragon, who then told the other monsters about its existence, creating a fountain with a statue of it, immortalizing its concept. But as time passed, all the monsters forgot that it was a real thing, viewing it as a monster of their imagination. The other possibility is that the Leafy Sea Dragon did come from the human world and existed at one point, but eventually went extinct. And while the Leafy Sea Dragons were alive, statues were made of them, only for monsters to forget about their existence, which would cause them to question if the creature in the statue is one of fantasy or history. So yeah, I'm not too sure, but I think there's a good chance that it did exist on the MSM timeline at one point. Similar to other things in this section, the Fossil-Osaurus and Eerie remains both have little information, so I'm grouping them together. Through the Fossil-Osaurus' description, it is confirmed to be made out of fiberglass, similar to what the Lidosaurus Rex and Regina remains are made out of. You can see where this is going. The Eerie remains fit perfectly as the body of the Fossil-Osaurus, and when you put them together, they look very similar to the Rex and Regina. Ignore my bigified model, but when you compare these remains, you can see they all have fins, and the heads and bodies are all very similar. So, this is what I think. I believe that the Fossil-Osaurus and Eerie remains decorations are based off of parts of real extinct species that falls under the Lirodocus family. We know that the Osaurus part of this new species is made out of fiberglass, which connects to the Rex and Regina models also being made out of fiberglass. And these fiberglass models have soul residue left behind on them, which the rare Wither is able to detect, confirming that they were once alive. Moreover, in Wither's likes, we can see likes both the Fossil-Osaurus and Eerie remains. And because of all these similarities and coincidences, I believe that these remnants when put together were a species of the Lirodocus family, once alive, living with its Rex and Regina friends.